Hey Vivas, and welcome to yet another episode of Viva Aaliyah. I'm so excited to chat with our guest today. He has been somebody who I've had my eye on my entire queer life. He is a legendary writer. He is an author. He is an actor. He is somebody that I have looked up to for a long time. We're going to get to our guest here in just a second. I want to talk to you really quick about the Viva Entertainer pageant that we have coming up in May. So, for anybody who's looking to qualify, there are no qualifications. All you have to do is go and register. We have the packet up on my Facebook page. We have links on my Instagram, and we will be putting them up everywhere as soon as we can. The Viva Entertainer pageant is open to all entertainers. There is not one type of entertainer that this crown will go to. It's whoever has the best scores at the end of the day. There will be no interview. There is talent, evening wear, and it can be creative if you want it to. There's going to be a top 5 Q&A. That'll be the only question asked. And then, of course, there's a creative presentation. So if you want to register, go ahead and check out my Facebook page. You can check out any of my socials. We're going to link it everywhere we possibly can. But the packet is up. It's viewable. And we are going to have our promo reels for that by next week. So don't worry. We have a lot coming. And I'm going to start introducing all of our judges so that you know who you're going to be judged by when you sign up for this pageant. All right, now that that's out of the way, I am very excited to have this guest on my show. I've already said how excited I am, but I can't stop saying it because he is such an iconic person. He is incomparable in my books, and his name is Michael Musto. Give it up, Vivas.
Hello, darling.
How are you?
Fabulous. I wasn't going to leave the house anyway, so I figured I might as well speak to you.
Yeah, we are all locked down in New York and making sure we're minding our P's and Q's.
We're smart here in New York. We went to school and we paid attention.
We sure did. Speaking of New York, you and I are both locked down here. It's been a long time, but stuff is going to start opening up hopefully soon. And what is like the one thing you are like ready to sink your teeth into?
A gigantic black penis. No, kidding. No, just social interaction of any kind, because even when I do get together with friends, we're masked, we're across the street screaming. I was like, what? What'd you say? So I think it's going to come back with a vengeance. When we're through this crisis, and we are going to get through it, people, nightlife is going to be extraordinary because there are so many empty places right now that anybody who wants to open a dance club will be welcomed. No one's going to say, no, you can't do that. And people are going to be just itching to put on their finery and get out there and party. It's going to be the party of the century. Not since Biden and Harris won, and we were all dancing in the street. Remember that?
Yes, I sure was. I'll count my pathway to my living room as the street, but I was definitely dancing. I think I drank a whole bottle of champagne that day.
Oh, really? So not as much as usual.
About as much as usual, yes. I would love to throw a party with you.
I would love to. I love throwing a party. Because I'm a terrible party goer. I'm shy, and I kind of lurk in the corner in my outfit, and I'm like, why is no one talking to me? But I like the organizing.
It's one of my favorite parts too of being at a party is organizing the entire thing.
I mean, I don't drink and I don't do drugs, so I'm like a eunuch at an orgy or something.
But you're the most coherent person at an orgy, I'm assuming.
Or a diabetic at a candy shop. But thank you. Yes, the reason I don't do all of that is so that I can remember everything the next morning instead of saying, what happened? And I could write about it. And that's why I'm still here. I've been through so many years, Aaliyah, of people falling through the cracks. And some of them become superstars. Some of them you never hear from them again. What happened? I just am a constant on the scene. I'm a constant presence. You can rely on me. I've become Buddha. I've become some kind of, omniscient force, a compendium of information about everything that ever fucking happened.
I mean, you literally are just the person to know on the scene, in my opinion. And I'm so grateful that I get to know a little bit more about you. The first question, of course, is the question I ask all of my guests. And that is, what's in your glass today? What are we drinking?
Oh, well, water, because as I said, I don't drink. I stopped drinking in the 90s. Cheers. And it's tap water because whenever I go out with friends and we're all paying for ourselves and the waiter says, you want tap or sparkling? I go, tap. You know, that panicky, like, tap. I don't want to pay for sparkling. But if someone's treating, oh, sparkling, of course.
Yes.
But
or your finest bottle of still, if you can.
No, not even still, just tap.
Just tap, okay.
That's what this is, just tap, because nobody's treating me tonight. Cheers.
Cheers to tap. That's what I always order when I go out too.
And it's an Atlantic City swag cup here, because I love going to Atlantic City. They have the Miss America pageant for drag.
Yes. Have you been involved in the Miss America pageant for a few years?
I've judged it and I've attended and covered it. It's always a lot of fun. It's like old school drag pageantry.
Which is my specialty. I am a old school drag girl. I love that. Michael at a party is me at a party. We've also had compliments on how you're looking today. We're loving this jacket. And people have just called you fabulous overall. So we're off to a good start.
Your viewers have very good taste.
I agree. They're viewing this show and they're complimenting that jacket. They have amazing taste.
I think this was from the International Mail catalog. How sick is
yes!
that?
Oh my gosh, I haven't seen an International Mail catalog in a few years.
I don't think it exists anymore, but I look at the old copies. It's like After Dark magazine or whatever. HX, remember that?
Oh my gosh, yes. Wow. So I want to jump into this interview because I am dying to know the answer to these questions. In my opinion, you are famously a triple threat. You have authored, you have written many news articles, you are an actor, you've been in shows, and you've been reporting on our community for quite some time. What are some of the major differences in your creative process from when you started writing or acting or doing any of that until today?
Well, I started my column in the Village Voice in 1984. This was way before internet, way before cell phones. You had to go out there every night, and there were events every night. I would go to 3 or 4 clubs, after parties, fashion shows, movie premieres. That's how I got most of my stuff. There also was land mail. Remember land mail? You go to your mailbox, there'd be invitations, and people would call. Remember telephone, land phones? So eventually I had to learn to adapt to the new technology. And now everyone on earth is basically a gossip columnist. Everyone can report whatever they want on the social networks. Everyone has an opinion. And so it's a different landscape. But I've adapted, and what keeps me unique, I hope, is the fact that people aren't so much into what I write necessarily. It's my take on things. I have a unique point of view or perspective, and everyone does have that unique voice. But I've managed to tap into mine, and I even get paid for it sometimes.
Do you think your voice has changed over the year in how you present yourself in the media?
It did, because when I started the column in the Village Voice, I wasn't that politicized. But as AIDS, the early days of AIDS, you weren't around, but boy, it was rough. It was just like COVID, but it was gays and IV drug users and other people dying, devastating, quick and grisly deaths. And that politicized me because President Reagan, just like Trump screwed up COVID, President Reagan wouldn't even address the AIDS subject at all. So that made me more and more angry gay. And my column through the years became just infused with a gay righteous, furor. And then everyone came out. All the celebrities came out, and there was gay everywhere. And it seemed like there was less to be angry about. And John Waters, my favorite filmmaker, once told me, well, you can't carry that amount of rage for your entire life. Eventually, you get a little more comfortable. You're successful. But now, with Trump, I started getting angry again, and that was good because it tapped into my old activist self, and I felt I really haven't changed that much. The accoutrements have changed, but not who my persona is.
I love that. You also don't age very quickly. You look very similar to this that you did back in the 80s and 90s. I have, of course, like I said, followed you my entire career and entire queer life, and what are you using for your skincare, Michael Musto?
Well, I drink the blood of young virgins. But
that's the best way to go, I found.
I just happen to have great genes. My parents both lived to 95, and they didn't look a day over 90. And here's my morning regimen, which I recommend to everyone. Here's the 3 things you have to get: apricot facial scrub, Kiehl's facial fuel, which is a blue liquid cleanser, and vitamin E oil. You wake up, splash your face and neck with hot water, put the apricot facial scrub all over, leave it on for 20 minutes, go in the shower, wash it off with the facial fuel, dry it to the bone, and apply the vitamin E oil. Boom, that's your 401k. That's the best investment you can ever make. The years will go flying away.
Well, you heard it from the expert here. I mean, not only did you tell us what you use, you gave us visuals on how you use it. And it was
That was my tutorial, basically.
We now have a new influencer on YouTube.
Thank you. And I have influenza.
You talked about your rage during and what fueled you during Reagan's presidency and Trump's presidency, which is like ignoring the fact that things are going on in the world that need attention. Was that the catalyst that made you really say, obviously you are a LGBTQ plus person, but was that the thing that made you say, this is what I need to write about, and this is one of the main things that needs to be said right now?
It was. I mean, I was always gay. I was always openly gay, but this politicized me. It hit me like a lightning bolt. Friends, icons were dying horrifying deaths with no one helping except the community itself and our small group of allies. And Reagan just willfully turned a blind eye. Donald Trump enraged me for 4 years. Everything he did was horrifying. The LGBTQ people who think he was pro-queer, he wasn't. He took away so many of the protections that Obama and Biden had put in. He liked to brag about how gays loved him. He liked to brag about how he was New Abe Lincoln and he was great for black people. He was not. And the parade of lies and corruption leading up to this violent incitement, this attack on the Capitol to destroy and overturn our entire democracy. Wow. Aaliyah, after all the horrifying things I've been through, that was the worst. We all went through it. We all watched it. That was absolutely the worst and scariest, because if it had succeeded, goodbye democracy, we would be living in what would eventually become Nazi Germany.
Absolutely.
I'm not. People used to say, how dare you make the Nazi comparison? It's trivializing. No exaggeration.
No, there is no exaggeration there. I couldn't agree with you more. And you've obviously written about politics before, having been in this realm of journalism. But in your years, you said that you've this was the most terrifying. What was so different about Trump than, let's say, Reagan, since he ignored the AIDS epidemic?
Trump not only kept saying COVID was nothing, it's going away, it'll go away in the warm weather, we have one person coming in, don't worry. What was that? We now have over 400,000 dead. And of course, Fox News will start blaming Biden for whoever dies from here on in, even though for a year they said it was a hoax. But Trump basically screwed up everything. He made us embarrassing on the world landscape. Our allies are so happy. They're dancing a jig right now that we have a credible leader who can communicate with them in real terms. Trump made everything into a personal grudge or favor payback. He played it all like a mob boss. And then just saying that he won by a landslide when he lost over and over again, no matter how many lawsuits, no matter how many recounts you lost, and then still holding on to it to the last day and trying to get people to incite the attack, which happened. It's horrifying. They went there trying to kill members of Congress. This is not what you call a protest. This is an organized attack to bring down democracy. And they had all been fed lies by Trump and his cronies. Utter lies. Trump didn't win. Sorry, folks, didn't win. He lost by a landslide.
He sure did. Since you've been such a staple in the nightlife scene, how do you think that the Trump presidency and COVID has changed nightlife?
Well, the great thing about people in nightlife is that they're resilient. In the 90s, Giuliani, who of course is Trump's idiotic amateur lawyer, was mayor of New York, and he was destroying nightlife and cracking down and raiding clubs. And the nightlife then was resilient. We kept fighting back in our own way, and there were always people like Suzanne Barge, the party promoter, and there was Jackie 60 and other things going on. Right now, everybody said, well, between Trump and New York, the way it is with COVID lockdowns, we're just going to move online like you and I are right now. And the drag queens are so resourceful. They came up with online shows. We're having the Glam Awards on Monday for the best online, best podcast, etc. And it's going to morph back into in-person because nightlife really has to be in person. When you say make some noise, you don't want to hear somebody clanking a comment on their computer keyboard. You want to hear something in person.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's the hardest thing being an entertainer is not seeing your crowd anymore and just relying on the comments that come in. And it's so, I mean, I can see on my monitor, I see the comments that are coming in for this even, and it's nothing like you would get during a show. There's not that feeling. There's not that like internal fuel burning because of all of the claps and the screams. It's so different. So yeah, I'm very excited to see what we're going to be after this.
It's going to be good, believe me. Hang in there, folks. We're going to have a party. Yeah. And I must say, Mayor de Blasio, everyone hates de Blasio, but he did say, I'm dismissing the old cabaret laws that Rudy Giuliani and even Bloomberg called upon. Those were old, obsolete laws, which were originally used to keep black people out of clubs. And they would crack down on any club that had dancing, that didn't have a dance license, as if this is the end of the world. New York had turned into the city from Footloose, where dancing was basically illegal. And de Blasio said, we're not going to give any attention to those laws anymore. So that was a good sign. But then came the COVID. And now we're going to explode when this is over. We're going to have a heck of a time. I might even drink sparkling water.
Are you saying you would pay for it on your own and not have it paid?
No, I never said I would pay for it. I never said I would pay for it.
A man after my own heart right there. That's why, like I said, I want to throw a party with you. We need people to buy both of us the sparkling water.
Let's do it. I mean, when these bars reopen, they're going to need an infusion of energy and everyone rallying and supporting. And I love my Village bar. As much as HK is the place, my favorite place is the Village because that has the history and that has the coolest people. They're not all just twinks who watch Drag Race. No offense.
No, I hear you.
I like the diversity. I like a different, I like a whole different diversity of types of LGBTQ.
Do you have a favorite spot in the Village that you like to go to?
I think my long running home away from home has been Pieces.
Yes, we love Pieces.
I just like it. I feel comfortable there. I feel like I'm at home. I've arrived.
It's a wonderful place to perform in too. I've had the luxury of performing there, and I cannot tell you that there's been another crowd like Pieces that I performed in front of.
They're enthusiastic.
Yeah, I like those intimate crowds that you get to see somebody this close to you and not have to deal with being so far away or up on a pedestal. I think that it's very important to be a part of your crowd when you're performing. And
when you see they're about to hurl, you kind of move a few strategically.
Yeah. Most definitely. Although I would say that happens more in Hell's Kitchen than it does in the Village. I feel like the Village knows how to hold its alcohol.
Well, because in Hell's Kitchen, they start drinking at happy hour at 5 o'clock.
Yes.
So by 11.
Dominic, can you throw up the last comment that just came in? I just want to recognize this person. The fabulous entertainer Jennifer Fox, who has definitely been around since the 80s. Fabulous folks, kudos, XOXO. Hi, Jennifer Fox. It's so wonderful to see you. All right, let's jump back in. What would you say are some of your favorite highlights from the different queer ages? You have been around for some time, and you've been anywhere from the club kids to the RuPaul age. What are some of your highlights for each era of queer nightlife in New York?
In the 70s, when I actually started writing, Studio 54 was the exciting nightclub to go to. And it wasn't just gay, it was everything. But gays were welcomed and worshipped, and everyone wanted to be around the gays. And it was just dazzling. The decor, it was in an old TV studio theater, which is now the theater where Broadway shows will happen when the lockdown's over. And you walk in, if you got in, because it was like the French Revolution outside, just trying to get the attention of the door person, you kind of were pulled in and you entered this world where you saw Liza Minnelli, Diana Ross, Cher, Raquel Welch, Michael Jackson when he was not as agoraphobic. And the dancing was extraordinary. The music downstairs, I didn't even know this till later. The celebrities were down there doing coke in the VIP room. Steve Rubell, the co-owner, was hiding money in the wallpaper.
Oh, wow.
And upstairs was anonymous sex. It was a gigantic hedonism palace where nobody cared at all about the future. Then in the 80s was incredible nightlife as well, because there were big dance clubs. There was Area, Palladium, Limelight, Danceteria, and they all catered to the bohemians. But there was also an East Village scene, Pyramid for drag. And then in 87, ACT UP started. That was the AIDS activist group. And I joined that and went on their actions and rallies. And that was invigorating. It was a way for us to get people to notice AIDS, the media and the government. And then came the club kids, where they kept growing. And I would go every Wednesday to Michael Musto's Disco 2000, which was quite a debauch. I mean, there was like a dancing amputee whose leg fell off and a girl would hump the leg. There was a guy who drank his own pee. Not stuff you could find on primetime television. And it just kept going. I mean, RuPaul in the 90s. When RuPaul first came to New York in the 80s, she was sort of a black exploitation, like a Pam Grier crossed with Cher and Tina Turner. Amalgam. She was like a Frankenstein and fabulous. And she was everywhere. I was almost like, oh my God, she's got to be over, because every night she was at every single club. But she was just about to break with the mainstream. That's how trends happen. And by the time she broke, she was more uptown hooker. She was more slick and glossy. She was doing like, you better work, but they cut out the bitch. Originally it was, you better work, bitch.
Ah!
Yeah, but then it was, oh, let's make her mainstream. And she was fabulous. She got her own talk show on VH1.
Yep.
You weren't born yet?
No, I used to watch it.
Okay. From the crib?
Yes.
And then it seemed like there was a pause, because showbiz gives you a lot of, I've learned this, you get a lot of chapters. There was a pause where RuPaul was in an intermediary career phase, and then came Drag Race. And then it's like bigger, Emmy Awards, Australian Drag Race, UK Drag Race. She's the biggest drag queen in history, and she's incredible. And I also loved Divine, who was John Waters' drag star, who unfortunately died after doing Hairspray. She was just about to appear on Married with Children in a male role. So Divine lost us too soon, but I'm fascinated by drag queens. I'm a little concerned that there's so many now, and all they care about is getting on Drag Race.
Yeah, it's hard, because you have to decide whether you want to continue to be the queens that are accessible to people and you're able to travel for minimal fees and all of this, or whether you want to propel your career into this life of TV and being famous and doing Work the World tours and all of that. It's a very hard decision to make. I've even questioned it myself, even though I am kind of I started in 2005, so only 15 years in the business, but it's always been a question of mine whether since Drag Race has come along, whether I stick to my roots, which was before YouTube and before Instagram and Twitter really kicked off and had all of these tutorials, and you had to learn by traveling to clubs and performing. That old meme that has gone around where they say like drag queens will pack $50,000 worth of whatever into like a Ford Fiesta or a Geo Metro is so true. That's what we used to do, is pack all of our expensive drag into tiny cars and drag across the country. So it's definitely a question that's come up quite a bit.
I don't think it's that hard a decision between like, should I make $150 a night and perform on a stage that I could fall through a hole, or $5,000 a night? But I'm a whore.
I love you.
But to me, when I was covering drag in the 80s, I was one of the very few doing so. And it was subversive. It was underground. It was a little more exciting. And everyone craved my mention. Like, drag queens needed me to validate them with publicity. Now it's like, oh, get out of the way. Here's my reel. I'm going to Drag Race. That's the be all and end all. And it brings out some people that aren't that good.
Oh,
because drag is so popular that everyone, oh, let me put on a wig. That'll make me good. Not necessarily. But the best thing about it is that it has normalized it. It's brought it into everyone's homes. Everyone worships drag queens now. So I have no problem with Drag Race. Oh, there I am with RuPaul.
Ah, look at that. Was that when she was more uptown or downtown?
This is downtown, and she was sexually molesting me. This was before the restraining order.
I love that.
Well, she
There's
always
one.
lit up her room. She was a firework. She always lit up her room.
You mentioned Studio 54 at the beginning. That is one era that I wish I could visit for a long period of time. I wish I could get into Studio 54 and just even stand in a corner and watch what was going on.
It's one of the few clubs that was everything it's cracked up to be. Whatever you hear about it, it's all true. It was that fabulous. And there were times I didn't get in because the doorman was named Mark Beneke. He didn't like me. Steve Rebell liked me because Steve was the co-owner. He was very press savvy. And I had interviewed him for the Soho News, which was another alternative paper. So if Steve was at the door, he would pull me in. If Mark Beneke was at the door, he would just look at me like I was a piece of garbage. And you kind of wilt. You'd be in this incredible outfit. And the longer you stood there, the less chance you had of getting in. But eventually they were very regimented. They had publicity companies with press lists where you got in at a separate entrance. So at that point, I didn't have the worry, am I going to get in? But you also missed out on the excitement of the front door. You saw that picture of people like auctioning off their babies. Steve Rebell once said to this married couple that came to the door, Steve said to the guy, "You look good, your wife doesn't. She can't come in." The husband, it was like a Sophie's Choice. The husband took 1 second and he said, "Bye, honey." And he went in.
My husband is sitting back there and he said I would do that to him.
Oh, that's cold.
Probably not untrue, but it is a little cold for him. Call me out.
I think you would both get it.
Are there any? Would you say that, like, let's say the Limelight, was that a club that is up to its hype?
Yeah, I mean the Limelight started really slow. When it opened, it was kind of eh. And by the way, I've been to all the Limelights, including Atlanta, Chicago, London. Sent me on all these trips. And once it started cooking, it was fun. And I had a lot of parties there, whether they be birthday parties or presenting nightlife awards that were hosted or guest starred by different stars like Donna Douglas, who was Ellie Mae Clampett in Beverly Hillbillies, Barbara Eden, I Dream of Jeannie. We had Mrs. Fletcher from the I've Fallen and I Can't Get Up Life Call commercial. We had all these crazy people, and my parties would bring together like Quentin Crisp and, you know, the downtown and the drag queens and the uptown, and it was a crazy scene. It really was so much fun.
Yes.
That's so true.
Life's a bitch and then you die.
So true. And whoever has the most things when you die wins.
Whoever has the most things when you win die. I like that. And what things would you like to have when you pass?
Oh, some Beanie Babies. I think they're cute. I'm so old. I'm at the point where I'm like, oh, I love Beanie Babies and I love the musical Cats. I like things that I despised when I had my mind.
Did you see the new movie Cats?
Yes, I was allergic.
I feel like most people were allergic to that film.
I mean, Jennifer Hudson I usually love, but she was like snot was dripping out of her nose as she was singing Memory. It was not pretty. And but normally I adore any Taylor Swift, Judi Dench musical. Don't you?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely can't disagree with you on Judi Dench. She is one of the legends of the world for sure. Taylor Swift, I'm not so sure about still, but I'm definitely down for Judi Dench.
Taylor Swift, I always think, well, I liked Olivia Newton-John. To me, Taylor Swift is good, but she'll never be Olivia Newton-John. Sorry.
That's very true. I don't think she could ever compare.
But I like her politics. She's been great with the liberal causes.
So you mentioned a couple of people already, but you've been friends with, known, and reported on some of the most memorable people in history. Do you have favorites that just stick in your mind, even if you've met them once, and that just nobody could compare to, really?
I mean, my favorite star of all time is Diana Ross, who RuPaul also worships. And I was at a party for her on the Intrepid, the docked boat. And of course, at that time, it was like, don't talk to her, call her Miss Ross, don't look at her, you know. So I was like so nervous, and I worshiped her so much. She came over to me and said, "Hi, I'm Diana Ross." And I was like, I know, I almost fell off the boat, and was delightful. And of course, this was a press situation. Look at that. This was a situation where she's greeting press. I don't know what she's really like, but who cares? She was charming. I adore the woman. I also loved, Dominic, you might have a picture of Andy Warhol holding up my book cover or something. But Andy Warhol was quite the figure. And in fact, I wrote a cover story in the Village Voice called Death of Downtown, saying pretty much the downtown scene had died, partly because Andy Warhol had died. He was our leader. He was the one who validated an event. If he was there, you knew you were in the right place. He was manipulative. He would juggle people around and get tired of people and elevate them around. But he elevated drag and trans people before anyone else did. He made multimedia art, whether it was paintings or, you know what I mean? He did a TV show. He did movies. And really changed the culture and the way we look at art. He made comments on capitalism. Well, that's Lou Reed. I'd love to say that's me, but anyway, that is Andy.
Fiorucci famously had a space that Andy Warhol worked out of.
Fiorucci?
Yeah.
Yeah, Fiorucci was the fun boutique, like in the Bloomingdale area. It was the disco boutique. And a friend of mine named Mark Bush knew one of the people there and said, they want me and you to be in the window as mimes, and they'll pay us for 2 days. So we went the first day. Now I hate mimes. And it's not like Beanie Babies. I don't like them now. I still hate them. But I put the white pancake on, and I was doing all these mimey things, and I must have gone over the line because, like, people were watching and making faces from outside on the street. Because I wouldn't just do this kind of thing. I don't know what I was doing. I don't even want to think about it. But they didn't ask me back for the second day.
That's when you know you're doing it right.
Thank you. But I loved that store because it was a disco boutique. They sold like jeans with literally like a 26-inch waist, and I almost fit into them. I was so skinny at that point. I don't know what happened. Once I hit 30, the metabolism changed. I mean, the face stayed young and lovely, but don't look below the waist. It's not pretty.
I mean, when I hit 30, I feel like that's when my metabolism changed also. So I feel you on that. What was it like in that? Having stores kind of, because Fiorucci made his store not mockery, but it mocked what Studio 54 was about, correct?
I wouldn't say mockery. It was kind of like an imitation. It had like neon lights and glitzy clothing, but also jeans and simple clothing, but disco clothing, clothes to dance in.
And they had multiple spaces, from what I have read about, for artists like Andy Warhol, and you've been there, and there's just been multiple people that have come. Diana Ross has visited before. It's like another mini 54. Yeah,
and they eventually, years later, opened one downtown, which didn't do that well. But in the one uptown, Joey Arias, the famous drag singer,
yes,
was an employee. So I loved going there just to schmooze with him, and he would help me try on the jeans. And he was basically a work of art in himself. And he ended up singing with Klaus Nomi and David Bowie. David Bowie is another one of my favorites who I got to meet. You might, Dominic might find a picture of me and Bowie. I was so like crazy in love with David Bowie, not just physically, but his art, his aesthetic. I thought he was just God come to the earth to bless us with his being.
Joey is another one who has been around for quite some time and is still making a mark like you are. Are you super close with Joey Arias?
Yes, I love Joey and Raven O and Sherry Vine and Flotilla DeBarge. And they were all Bardot in the 90s. There was a place in the Village called Bardot. It was kind of a restaurant lounge. And they did sort of a Weimar cabaret show that was extraordinary. And they still do the reunion show, which is always a big event every year. There was also Sade Pandava. She left us, but she was a brilliant talent. So I treasure those people. They are trailblazers. They were born too soon to be on Drag Race, but who cares? They're winners.
Yeah, I would say to me they're equally as important to our culture, if not more. then, and I do love RuPaul, so anybody who's going to come for me on this, they are equally as important, if not more than RuPaul, because they've been around and they've done the work. They've paved the way, really, for any of us that are currently entertaining.
Yeah, RuPaul herself paved the way, and also there was a place called Boy Bar on St. Mark's Place, which was an incredible drag haven. It was like an MGM studio, and Matthew Kasten was like the impresario, and he would pick the new Boulevard Beauty, and they would get their own show, and they would have pageants, and it all paved the way. It was all really groundbreaking, and I'm glad I was there. Somebody said on Facebook, I'm going to submit you to the Guinness World Book of Records because you're in more documentaries than anybody alive, because everyone calls on me because I was there. I remember it. I can articulate what was interesting about it. So I'm happy being this kind of oracle, but fortunately I'm also plugged into what's happening now, and I get called upon a lot to comment on the present, and that's just as important to me.
Has anybody offered to do a autobiography with you?
Someone is trying to do or interested in doing a documentary of me.
Okay.
So instead of me kind of being the guest star in someone else's, which I've done so many times, it'll be about me. And I think that is a very good possibility.
Well, please keep us updated and let us know, because I will be very interested in watching that and making sure that it's seen. Who is the? We've talked a lot about the people that you've interviewed. Who is the person who has made the biggest impact when you've interviewed them or when you've written about them? We talked about the stars that you love to see, but was that the same person? Is that the same person that made the impact on you?
Two of my favorites were Sandra Bernhard and the late Carrie Fisher. Carrie was so brilliant, and I said to her, is it true that there's a rumor that when you were a little girl, you walked in on your mother doing it with Agnes Moorehead from Bewitched? Because that really was a rumor. And Carrie said, I hardly even walked in on her with men. But Carrie also, long story, but she went into the other room, came out with a pair of her panties and gave them to me to wear to her book party. That's how close we were. And Sandra Bernhard actually came out to me. It was an interview for Spin magazine, and she was talking about her girlfriend and a dildo and all this stuff. I was like, she always gave me just incredible copy. That's all I want. I'm not even trying to get to know someone. You can live with someone for 40 years and not know them. But if you're doing an interview, just give me some good copy that reflects who you are, but is fun to read. And Sandra always delivered.
Is there a person that you haven't had a chance to interview that you're dying to interview?
Yes, Meryl Streep, because I've been in the room with her. She's been honored, or she's been at someone else's honor, and I never had the nerve. What are you going to say? I love your work. Gee, I bet she's never heard that before.
You can tell her the story about the panties.
Okay. And ask for a pair of hers.
There we go.
I think it'll happen. I just need someone to officiate it. Because deep down, I've interviewed a lot of celebrities, but I'm terrified of celebrities. If I'm at a party and I'm supposed to get quotes, I'm nervous as hell to go up to them. And I'm always like, hi, hi. And oftentimes they are the nice ones, or they're the ones initiating. Their publicists are horrible in general. Publicists are like guard dogs. But the celebrities are always nice.
I can vouch for that. I work for a PR agency. I don't do PR, but I am the HR director for a PR agency. So yes, agreed. But is there anybody on your list of people that you've said, I will never, if you're willing to answer that?
Yes, but I won't even mention them because I don't want to give them the publicity.
I love that. I am down for that answer. You do have 4 books out, which we haven't mentioned yet. And I have started reading the first, which is Downtown. And then you have Manhattan on the Rocks, La Dolce Musto, writings by the world's most outrageous columnist, and Fork on the Left, Knife in the Back by Michael Musto. What does each of your novels signify in your life? And is it different milestones, or is it just these are the stories you needed to tell at those times?
Downtown is a nonfiction guide to the 80s nightlife, fashion, music, etc. scene when it was really percolating. And they came to me, they said, "You're the right person, you're in the middle of all this." And it's a terrific book. It was, listen to me congratulating myself, but it was my first
book. It's great already.
The second book, Manhattan on the Rocks, was a Romana Clef novel. Oh, you can see the quote from Andy Warhol on the cover of Downtown. Manhattan on the Rocks was a Romana Clef novel. That means the characters are loosely based. So I actually had a character based on Andy Warhol. I had someone based on Michael Ehrlich. And it's about a young sort of version of myself, but he's sort of in the closet trying to be straight, and he's trying to be a social climber, and then he finds out what's important and what isn't. And then the other two books that you mentioned, La Dolce Musto and Fork on the Left, Knife in the Back, are collections of my best work from the Village Voice with some original work added. So if you want like a compendium, let me get all Michael Musto's stuff together. Those are two good.
I love that photo of you on your book cover.
It's cute, yeah. I wasn't really in front of the Coliseum, but hey.
Hey, what are you going to do? You've actually mentioned Michael Ehrlich a couple times. Are you comfortable chatting about him very quickly on the show?
A little bit, but yeah, I get a little worn out. But
the only question I have is, you actually mentioned a couple of these things. You wrote, it was an article, 10 things that Michael Ehrlich did that were kind of like way out there and made you, they were almost cringeworthy. And you mentioned a couple of them, which was the guy who drank his own urine at the shows and the leg that came off. Was there...
Oh, the memories. Oh, the memories.
All the memories that come with that individual.
Brings the tears to my eye. Well, I mean, yeah, he tried to, you know, he would push pills in people's mouths. He would spike the punch bowl. He pulled me down a staircase. You know, I called him once an arrested child who needs to be arrested. So I was pretty much ahead of the game because he eventually was arrested.
Yeah.
But by the time the murder of Angel Melendez happened, which was done by Michael Ehrlich and Freeze, Robert Riggs, Michael was really spiraling. I mean, whatever was good about Michael from the beginning, you couldn't see anymore. He was just a mess on drugs and had lost all boundaries. But sometimes people don't remember that for years he was pretty much ruling the nightlife, and there was some good. There was some innovative parties. He was influenced a lot by the British club kid scene, Lee Bowery and all that. But he also had his own creative energy. And people at first liked the fact that he was kind of shaking up the bourgeoisie. He hated boredom. He hated conventions and wanted to push, you know, everyone's needle. But increasingly, he just got more and more desperate. And now it's so far in the past that I'm hoping nightlife can finally get a revival.
Yeah. How, if you don't mind me asking, how accurate was the movie Party Monster to what was going on in that time?
I have to admit I have the DVD, but I haven't watched it because it's hard for me to watch sometimes.
Yeah.
Something that I lived.
That's fair enough. So if you were to give some words of affirmation to our viewers in COVID, having been through another epidemic in the country, what would you say to everybody out there?
Ignore the anti-maskers, ignore the anti-vaxxers. They're the same morons who said the election was a fraud. Everything to them is a fraud. Nothing that happened actually happened to them. Oh, they know better. Here's what really happened. Wrong. COVID is real. We've gotten this far. Be safe, wear a mask, socially distance, sanitize. And my message to you as far as your entire life is life gives you many chapters. Look at me. When I got the column in 1984, I actually thought I was over as a writer. I thought I had peaked. I was 29. I was like, oh, I'm kind of over. Wrong. That was just the beginning when I got the job at The Voice. In the 90s, I got on the E! Channel. I had been on MTV in the 80s, but that fizzled out. Once I got on the E! Channel in the 90s, everything else came to me as far as TV appearances. And then every other job was coming to me through the Village Voice. So once you make these breakthroughs, it opens the door. It opens the floodgates. And then when the Village Voice folded, I got new jobs. I mean, if you have talent, if you have perseverance, you will always be relevant. And don't ever think you're over, because you're never over.
That gave me a breath of fresh air even. So thank you.
I didn't mean you. I didn't mean you.
Even better. That's the best way to go.
You know what? Larry King has passed, and now we have you as the new Larry King. So that's fantastic.
Well, we do have similar looks.
You look better in the dress.
It's the hair on the chest. It's really what brings us together.
That's it.
Can I ask what's coming up for you? What do you have going on currently that we should be watching out for? I didn't drag it out of you. You willingly said it, but there may be a documentary coming up. There may be a couple other things. What should we look out from Michael Musto in the future?
Basically death. I feel like that's in my future. And I just want to be put in a hefty bag and leaned against a garbage pail. I don't want any hoopla.
We can't promise that. The community loves you.
Cut that whole section. You know what? I'm writing a monthly column for Queer Tea. I'm writing for Daily Beast. I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere. I'm still doing TV, documentaries, and everything else. So for me, when people say, oh, you should rest and do, just relax and go to watch a movie, it's like, no, I watch movies as part of my job. I travel as part of my job. Everything I would do that normal people would do on a vacation, I do for my job, and I get paid for it. So I'm happy just continuing doing what I do, and I have every plan to keep doing that. I'm not ready yet for Shady Pines.
I couldn't be more happy to hear you say that you are ready to keep on, and we will not put you in Shady Pines as long as you keep giving us the gossip. Well, not just gossip, but the truth that you put out into the world. Thank you so much, Aaliyah. It's been delightful talking to you. It's been so great talking to you. I will see you backstage here in just a second. All of my Vivas, give it up for Michael Musto, the iconic, there is not another actor, book writer, and columnist, the amazing, amazing, amazing new friend that I have, Michael Musto. All right, Vivas, we have made it through another episode. We're in season 2. We are rounding out the season. Next week, we have a very special episode for you. I'm a little scared to see the drinks that are pushed at me during that show, because I have a feeling that people are going to want to see me have a little bit extra while answering some questions. Next week is my birthday show. And so I have all of my former guests, and I will be sending this to Michael as well. All of my former guests who would like to ask me a question can ask me any question that they want, and I am going to be interviewed by them. Dominic will be putting up the videos on the screen, and we'll just be having a blast with me answering all the questions. So they're turning the tables on me, which is very interesting. We're also going to be featuring my best friends in this interview. So people who have known me for quite some time are going to be able to ask me some questions, and I have no idea what's coming for me. So tune in next week to see that. I'm very, very, very grateful for the iconic Michael Musto for being on the show today. And I love all of you. Remember to take care of yourself, wear your damn masks, clean down your apartments and your surfaces and all of that. And when the time comes, get your ass vaccinated. If I hear otherwise, I'll find a promoter to bring me into a city where you are, and we'll have a stern talking to. I love you all, and we will see you on the next one. Viva Aaliyah. Viva Aaliyah.